The first time I heard the bulldozer, I thought it was working down the street. Then I saw it right on my property, chewing through my 120-year-old cedar fence like it was cardboard. 3 hours later, the Homeowners Association HOA slapped me with a $2,500 violation for the mess they'd just made. I live on the edge of a place called Cedar Ridge Estates, the kind of neighborhood where lawns look airbrushed and people wave like they're on camera. My place is different, older, rougher, more like a small ranch than a suburban showpiece. That fence wasn't just a fence. It was the line my grandfather put up when the land was still mostly fields, the kind of wood you don't even find anymore unless you salvage it from history. I wasn't trying to be the weird guy in the corner, I really wasn't. I kept my place clean, paid my bills, stayed out of everyone's business. But the day Brenda Hargrove became president of the HOA, staying out of it stopped being an option. Because Brenda didn't run that board like a group, she ran it like a throne. I met her for the first time in my driveway when she walked up like she owned the pavement. Red blazer, sunglasses, clipboard, the whole package. She didn't say hi. She pointed at my fence and went, "That has to go. It's not compliant." I blinked at her. "It's on my land." She smiled like I'd just told her something adorable. "It affects the community aesthetic. You signed the rules when you moved in." I actually laughed one short, tired laugh because it sounded ridiculous. Then she turned and walked away like the conversation was over. A week later at 7:12 a.m., I'm holding a mug of coffee, still half asleep, and I hear that engine. Low, heavy, like thunder that doesn't stop. I step out and my stomach drops. A crew is already there. Cones, hard hats, a bulldozer angled straight at my fence. I shouted, "Hey, what the hell are you doing?" The operator looked at me for half a second, then looked away like he'd been told not to engage. And then Brenda appears, standing near the curb, arms folded, completely calm, like she was supervising landscaping, not a demolition. "Stop the machine," I said louder now, walking toward her. "Right now." Brenda didn't even flinch. She lifted one hand palm out like she was stopping a dog. "Sir, you're being disruptive." "Disruptive?" I pointed at the bulldozer. "That's my fence." She tilted her head. "It was an eyesore. We issued notices." "I never got a notice." She shrugged, actually shrugged. "Maybe you missed it. Regardless, it's being removed." I stepped closer and she took one step back, but her voice got sharper. "Do not approach the workers. I will call security." "Call whoever you want," I snapped, pulling my phone out. "You're trespassing." And the whole time we're talking, that machine keeps moving. The fence starts cracking, splintering the cedar boards, snapping with this dry, awful sound, like old bones. I filmed everything. The bulldozer, the crew, Brenda's face, the way she stared at the wreck like she was proud of herself. When it was over, there was a pile of broken wood and twisted wire where my property line used to be. My hands were shaking, not from fear, more like the kind of anger that makes you cold. Brenda took off her sunglasses, looked me dead in the eye, and said, "You're welcome." Then she walked away. The next morning, there was a thick envelope taped to my door. HOA letterhead, printed like a court summons. Inside was an itemized bill and a violation notice. The total at the bottom was $2,500 charged to me for cleanup and restoration because my non-compliant structure had created debris. I stared at it so long the paper started to blur, because the logic was insane and also terrifyingly simple. They break your stuff, then fine you for it, then dare you to fight back. I drove straight to Brenda's house. You could have shot a commercial in her front yard. Perfect hedges, pavers lined up like soldiers, not a leaf out of place. She opened the door like she'd been expecting me. "Good morning," she said, sweet as syrup. I held up the notice. "Explain this." She glanced at it like it was a grocery list. "Standard enforcement procedure. You destroyed my fence. We removed a violation," she corrected. "If you're going to live here, you will follow the rules." I took a breath. I tried for half a second to be reasonable. "Brenda, my land is not your sandbox. That fence was here before this neighborhood had a name." Her smile flattened. "That's not how this works. The Homeowners Association protects property values. If you can't keep up, maybe Cedar Ridge isn't for you." I stood there with my jaw clenched, thinking about lawyers, court time off work, the cost of fighting something that shouldn't even be a fight. And in that moment, just for a moment, I felt that heavy, ugly helplessness. Not some dramatic spiral, just the practical kind. The kind where you think I might be outgunned. I might have signed something years ago and never noticed the fine print, and now I'm staring at a system that's designed to wear people down. That night I sat at my kitchen table with every document I could find. Closing papers, HOA packets, old surveys. I was so tired my eyes burned. I wasn't asking, "Am I the bad guy?" I was asking a more annoying question. Is this going to cost me more to win than to lose? Because that's how they get you. The next day, Mike Rivera knocked on my door. Mike's the kind of neighbor who always has grease on his hands and a joke ready, even when he's annoyed. He looked past me at the wreckage and went, "Oh man, she finally did it to you." I said, even though I knew. He nodded. "Brenda. She's been hunting for an excuse. You got the vintage fence." I got fined because my trash bin was visible from the street for 12 minutes. I stared at him. 12 minutes. Mike held up his phone and started scrolling. Photos, notices, fines, mailbox color, garden edging, my kid's chalk on the sidewalk. She calls it compliance. It's control. And that's when something clicked. This wasn't personal because of my fence. This was personal because Brenda needed someone to bend. Mike lowered his voice. "You know what she hates more than your fence paperwork that proves she's wrong." So we started knocking on doors. Not in some dramatic mob way, just two neighbors walking sidewalks hearing the same story again and again. Megan on Juniper Lane got cited because her kids left bikes near the garage. Frank down on Alder got warned because his flagpole was too tall. A retired couple had been threatened over a garden shed. Everyone had receipts. Everyone had a file. Everyone had that same look like they'd been swallowing anger for months. We didn't talk about revenge, we talked about process. A petition, a special meeting, a vote of no confidence, a formal request for records. All the boring stuff that makes power people nervous. And then we found the twist Brenda didn't expect. My buddy's cousin survey guy named Tyler Grant came out with his equipment. Tripod laser, the whole deal. He walked my property line while I watched, trying not to get my hopes up too high. He stopped near the remains of the fence and looked back at me. "Ethan." He said they didn't just remove a fence. "What do you mean?" He pointed to the stakes. "They crossed your boundary by a lot. That crew was operating on your land, not theirs. Your fence was inside your property line the whole time." I felt my pulse shift, like the anger finally had a direction, because this wasn't just an HOA being annoying. This was trespass, property damage, unauthorized work, liability. We printed the new survey. We made copies. We organized every fine, every notice, every photo. Mike built a folder so thick it barely closed. By the time the HOA announced an emergency community meeting, the room was already full before Brenda even walked in. She arrived late, of course, like she wanted everyone to wait for her. Same red blazer, same sunglasses, same confident stride until she saw how many people were there. She stepped up to the front, tapped the microphone, and tried to smile. "We're here because certain residents have been spreading misinformation." Her eyes snapped to me, "and one resident has been especially disruptive." I stood up slowly. My hands weren't shaking this time. "If telling the truth is disruptive, then yeah, guilty." Brenda's voice tightened. "You violated community standards. The HOA acted accordingly." I walked to the front with my folder. The room went quiet in that way you feel in your teeth. I set the folder down on the table and slid out the photos, my fence before the bulldozer during the debris after. Then I laid the survey on top. "This is my property line," I said, tapping the paper. "Your crew crossed it. They operated on my land. They destroyed a structure that was not under HOA jurisdiction." Brenda scoffed a little too fast. "That's not—" I turned my phone screen toward the board. "I have video of you standing there telling them to keep going after I told you to stop." Her mouth opened, then closed, and for the first time she looked unsure. Mike stood up behind me. "You want to talk about misinformation? How about the fines you've been handing out like parking tickets?" Megan stood too. "My kids' bikes don't lower property values. You're just bullying people." Frank's voice cut through the room, calm but heavy. "This board exists to serve residents, not to punish them." Brenda tried to grab control back. "This is turning into a circus." And I couldn't help it. I let a little sarcasm slip. "Funny, because you're the one who brought a bulldozer." The board members started whispering. People started pulling out their own paperwork. The room wasn't angry in a wild way, it was focused, like everyone finally realized they weren't alone. The motion hit the floor. Vote to remove Brenda as president effective immediately. She laughed one sharp, fake laugh. You can't do that. One of the board members, an older guy who looked tired of living under her shadow, cleared his throat. Actually, we can. The votes went up. Not a few, not half, almost the entire room. Brenda stood there frozen like she'd been unplugged. Her face went pale. Her eyes darted around searching for allies that weren't there. Then the acting chair said it plain as day. The motion passes. Brenda Hargrove is removed from her position. Brenda's lips moved like she wanted to argue, but no sound came out. She grabbed her folder, her clipboard, her little symbols of authority, then turned and walked out, fast heels clicking like a countdown. I didn't follow her. I didn't need to. I faced the board and kept it simple. I want restitution for the fence, and I want it in writing that the HOA will not step 1 inch onto my land again. Nobody clapped. Nobody cheered. It wasn't that kind of moment. It was just the sound of a bully losing oxygen and a room full of people finally breathing again. Lesson: don't let small power pretend it's real power. Paper proof and persistence beat intimidation every time.